Hi, I'm Kelly at Book and Paper Arts, and today I'm going to show you how to make these gorgeous bowls and cups and other things out of tea bags. Last year, I posted 3 videos about how to use tea bags as an art supply, and I promised that I was going to do a 4th one about how to make bowls out of tea bags. And you know what happened? After the 3rd video, I got so sick of looking at tea bags that I dawdled. But I'm here today. I'm going to show you how to do this. It is super easy, very inexpensive. All you pretty much need are tea bags and some paste. So join me. If you like book and paper arts, if you like journal arts, please subscribe to my YouTube channel and be sure and turn on the notifications. And you will have more of them in your life. Let's go make some bowls. Let's start by looking at the materials that you're going to need for this project. Tea bags. I actually have a lot to say about preparing tea bags, so we're going to come back to those in a mo. You need something to shape your piece around. I'm using plastic bowls that I got at Poundland. I think they're for picnics. But you could use whatever you've got in your cupboard or your kitchen. I was also looking around and I was just thinking this paste pot you could make a thin column shaped piece. Remember when we were kids and we used to make pencil holders for our parents? So you could do that. So look around, see what you got that has a nice, simple, basic shape. You need something to protect your piece so that you're not gluing the tea bags to the bowl. You'll never get them off. You could use cling film, cling wrap, and that's fine. I have used it, but I actually find it a little bit, it has a mind of its own. So when I was in Poundland and I saw these incredibly cheap plastic bags, super thin, I find these work a little bit better for me. So I'm going to use these as my lining, but you could also use cling film. I'm using some masking tape to glue it in, and I'll show you that in a minute. And you need something to work on. Rather, you could just put it on the table, but I find it much easier if I've got my piece elevated a little bit, so I can work in those edges if I need to. So this tin is good. I also use this. It's a jar of instant coffee, and those give me a nice solid surface thingy support to work on. You're also going to need some kind of paste. I'm using a homemade paste that I made out of corn flour. That's cornstarch if you're in the States. You can make it in less than 5 minutes. It just costs pennies, and you can do so much with this homemade paste. I have a recipe for this homemade paste. I have a video showing how I made it. The video is here on YouTube, and if you missed it the first time, there's a link to that video making paste, homemade paste, in the text box below this video. So just check that out, and you can learn how to make it yourself. It is so easy, and it will change everything. I get asked a lot. Several times a week I get asked, yes, but if you use a paste with your paper that you've made from cornstarch or from wheat flour, won't it go bad? The answer is no, not really. And I don't know why. I just know that wheat and cornstarch-based paste have been used in paper and book arts for centuries. So don't overthink that part. You can also use a white craft glue, a PVA white craft glue. Don't use it straight. You want to put it in some kind of a bowl and then add 1 part glue to 1 part water, or possibly 2 parts glue to 1 part water. Get in there and see what it's like and how it works with your paper, but just dilute it a bit, and then you can use this. Some of you already have a stash of tea bags, but I know some of you do not. But if you're not familiar with how to acquire and prepare tea bags, I have a video where I talk about that at great and tedious length and detail. So if you're not sure how to acquire and prepare a stash of tea bags, the link to that is also in the text box below this video. Go check that out, and you're going to get tons of details about how to get started making your own stash. Before we start gluing, we need to protect the bowl or whatever you're using as a mold with that cling film or some plastic wrap. And these are the thin plastic bags. When I first started making these, I tried so hard to get them to be really tight and perfect, like a second skin, and it never worked. And that's okay, because I found out that they can be loose and choppy and messy like this, and they're still going to work. So don't agonize over the fact that this is baggy. Trust me, that's going to be just fine. But I do want to keep it in place, so I'm just putting some masking tape here around the center. I think that'll be okay. Well, no, let's do that. Even better. So now I have this sheath that's going to keep the tea bags from gluing themselves to the bowl. Let's jump right in, shall we? I've got my paste, I've got my tea bags. Again, this paste was made with 1 part corn flour and cornstarch to 8 parts water. 1 cup of water and 1 tablespoon of cornstarch. So it's pretty gloppy. If there's a tidy way to do this, I don't know it. So I'm just going to have a towel at hand, and what you want to do is get them nice and damp. And I start by covering the base that I'm working on, because that is going to be supporting our bowl, so it's the most important. And so I'm just making this base by going around this way, this way, this way, and this way. And just keep going in and covering that, making it flat. Here's the thing about making these bowls. They are not going to be regular, and I don't think you can make them regular. It's just the nature of the tea bag. So what I do is I relax and enjoy it. It's messy, but it's actually kind of therapeutic, and I like it. So after you've got your base, start building up your sides. You can go vertically or horizontally, doesn't matter. Because once you start building these up, these wet tea bags are really forgiving. So I could make it like this. But I'm going to actually go around, just keep patting them down, and they will glue themselves to each other. There's a seam there. I don't care. It's called texture. And I'm just going to keep going around and building up the sides of the bowl. See, look how messy that is. Doesn't matter. Once you start squishing it in, it's going to glue itself to its, oh, see there it's sticking out. Doesn't matter. Leave those wrinkles. Leave that texture. Just make sure it's nice and gluey. And then keep going around. This is building up nicely. But I can still see it does have a tea bag down there, but it's very thin. And that's going to need some reinforcing. And here, maybe here. So go around as you're building. After you've got your first layer down, see where you need to add maybe 2, 3 more layers. Because it's still going to be a delicate piece. And this is how you can make it a little more robust. Okay. So something that I'm doing is about the edges here. I'm not worried about them being matchy or perfect. In fact, I like when they're all irregular like this. I think it does add texture, it adds interests, and kind of like a handkerchief hem on a skirt. Just don't be afraid to let them be irregular. If you don't like that look when you're finished, you can always go around and trim them. Okay, there's a thin spot. And make them nice and regular. But if you're like me, you like that distressed fun look. Yeah, I'm going to go horizontally again. Long ways. Just pressing that seams down here. Gotta tell ya, turning my camera on and off while my hands are covered with paste is not something that I had foreseen. Something that is really good about this is you can, as I said earlier, is you can do it with kids. We've got some holidays coming up. So why don't you, if you want to start now making your stash of tea bags, then when you have little people who are not in school, you're going to have something that you can make with them that does not involve being on a screen. That's always a good thing to have. All right, I'm going to stop there. Go around and make sure that everything, as you work into it, it's just going to be a big old mush, almost like clay. So don't worry about that. Just keep, if you've got some seams, if you've got some irregular spots, just keep working them into each other like that. And now we're going to let it dry. When it comes time to dry these pieces, again, you just want to put them on a support so that as much air as possible can get round the edges. If you can put these in a sunny place, a window with bright sunlight, or Maybe if you want to put them in a room where you've got a heater or a radiator, not on it, but just near it. So just make sure they're getting as much heat and or sun as you can. And they're pretty much going to be dry uh, the next day, day and a half. I live in a damp climate here in Wales, and mine were dry a day later. Now that you've seen how to make the basic bowl, let's look at a couple of varieties. Build on that basic technique. First, let's look at doing this bowl, this cup bowl thingy made of tea bags with gauze. And I think it might be my new favorite. I made it using, you can use anything, whatever you're using, a bowl, whatever shape. This is going to be made on a yogurt cup. It doesn't get much more basic. I put my wrapper around it, and again, you can see it's not really tight. It doesn't have to be. Got the tea bags, and I've got some scraps of gauze. These are from tea-dyed gauze that I use in other projects. I've just cut them into squares. I found the hard way that if you cut them too narrow, they will be, when they hit the glue, they're useless. So make sure that you give yourself a little bit of more stuff there. Okay, I'm going to start by adding a base. With the glue, with the paste. Put that down and work it around the sides a little. The difference in this bowl and the basic bowl is that you don't want to build up a heavy wall on the sides. You can add more to the base because that is going to need some oomph. Across the bottom there. Work that onto the sides. But you can see here that it's pretty irregular. Again, like a handkerchief hem on a skirt kind of thing. So that's where I'm going to start, with those irregular, not completely covering the side things. And I'm going to start with getting my gauze covered in paste. Yeah, it is very messy. Now I'm just draping it, working it into the bottom and onto the sides, and you can see where it's actually going over the tea bag. So that's where you're going to get some of the gauze taking on its own shape. Now I'm going to add a little bit more tea bag and a little bit more gauze, layer by layer. Just going to fluff that up a little. This is a very inexact kind of a thing, so just play around with it. You'll learn by doing more of them, but tea bags and gauze are very forgiving, so just get in there and play around. Make shapes. And the only thing I'm going to do now is add a little... You don't want the tea bags to overwhelm your gauze, but you do want it to support it. So I'm going to put a little bit more of a wall there, but it's only going up about a third of the way. Again, just experiment what looks and feels good to you. If you don't have gauze, you could use cheesecloth or some scraps of fabric. You could use tissue paper, cut that into some unusual shapes and work that in for some contrast. Silk might even work. I'm not sure how it will do with the paste, but there's only one way to find out. I'm going to let that dry now. In this version, I'm going to incorporate threads, just for some pattern and texture. And I've cut a bunch of lengths of this cotton thread. You could use embroidery floss or any kind of twine that you've got. Just see what kind of threads you like. You might want a contrasting color. You might want to go with a creamy color. I think I might next time. So that you're just working in this tea-colored palette. But anyway, so I've laid the threads across the bowl with the plastic bag. I haven't added any tea bags yet. I'm going to put my first one down over my threads. And as before, I'm just going to start building this foundation. I'm going to make this one a little bit lighter with fewer layers because I want to see if these threads are going to show. So this will be a pretty light piece. So, and I'm going to go around and keep building up those walls, but with only a couple of layers, and then I might even add a few more threads as I go. I just made that up as I went along. I had the original base of threads, covered that with one or two layers of the tea bags, and then I added a few more threads in a kind of a curly, wavy, messy look on top of that, and covered it with one more layer of tea bags. So we will see what that looks like when it dries. The basic bowl is now dry, so it's time to take it off of the mold. I've cut away some of the plastic shield there, and this can sometimes be a little bit fiddly because even though this is loosey-goosey, and you've got your plastic, sometimes when you're gluing the tea bags, they don't want to let go. If that happens, just go around. I'm using a craft knife scalpel here, but you could just use a thin knife or a popsicle stick and just go around and make sure that you've got all of your sides loosened up. And then you might have to just wriggle it out and work it out. But I can promise you I've never yet had one that didn't come out. Ta-da! There you go. You can see it's gorgeous. You cannot put water in these things. Do not put your cereal and milk in one of these. What you can do is use it for, it's just decorative, or you could put little, like a potpourri in here, or some little stones. Just use it as a decorative bowl. There you go. The bowl with the threads is dry now, so let's look at how that turned out. It's not a wild success, but I think there's a lot of potential here. I probably should have put down a thin wall, single wall of tea bags first, then added the threads, and then made the top threads more loopy. But definitely something to work with. Now that you've got your finished bowls, let's look at some things that you need to know. I love my edges ragged and distressed, but you may not. And if that is the case, you can trim them. All you have to do is take some substantial scissors and cut around it until it looks more like a traditional bowl. This bowl looks different than this bowl. That is because this one, when this one was dry, I mean really completely dry, several days dry, I added a coat of acrylic matte gel medium. And there's a plastic, it's acrylic, so there's some plastic kind of acrylic in there. And I just coated it. I just coated the whole thing, and then I let it dry. And then when it was very dry, I added a second coat of the gel medium. When that dried, this became quite a bit less fragile. So you still don't want to put liquid in it, but it's going to hold up to a bit more wear and tear. So that's an option. If you'd like, you can reinforce it with some gel medium, but it's completely optional. Not everybody has gel medium. You can also decorate your bowls. It's not my style, but if you like that, you could really go to town with this. Doing some mark making or patterns. I'm going to just use some acrylic paint on a makeup sponge to do a little bit of mark making. I would definitely use a bold contrasting color. But you could add squiggles, you could paint with this. And go all around the bowl, maybe on the outside. So if you think you'd like it decorated, have at it. There you go. To recap, we have the plain uncoated bowls, and this little one, just to show you, I made on a glass ramekin. And it turned out really well. The one that is a hybrid of tea bag and gauze, that is just crazy, and I'm here for it. One that's been decorated with a little bit of pattern making. The imperfect but promising tea bags with threads. And then my favorite, just the plain old, simple bowl. Before I close out, I have an update on the newsletter, a little bit of housekeeping. The good news is it's growing like gangbusters. The other news is that this sudden growth kind of broke it. Oops. And the lady who does my IT is sorting it out. She's trying to fix the subscriber issue. And so if you have subscribed in the last 2 or 3 days, and if you try to subscribe in the next week and it bounces you out or comes back to you, please be patient. It should be sorted out by this time next week, and I will update you again then. about how that's coming along. Yikes. If you have any feedback, any questions, or even if you have any ideas of your own about making this sort of paper bowl project, please let me know in the comments below. I love to compare notes. Until later, get up and go make something. Bye.